Sup YouTube, welcome back to another video. I just realized I haven't uploaded a single video documenting my journey toward reaching legend rank this season. So to start things off with a bang, as one ox would say, I'm going to be showcasing a double steel backline, as I'm wont to do, this time with Shadow Gallade in the lead. Shadow Gallade rocking your standard moveset of Psycho Cut, Leaf Blade, and Close Combat for that hard-hitting, fast-reaching charge attacks. Sir Reginald the Bulbous and Shadow Steelix both working as safe swaps and also potential closers. Registeel does have the Legacy Zap Cannon, which you would need an elite charge TM to get. If you watched my previous video, then you now know who Mr. Fleek is. Fleek has told me that I cannot run Sir Reginald the Bulbous, and because I always do what I am told, we are rocking Sir Reginald the Bulbous. So let's do the hocus pocus and get off with these battles. I'm going to run through a variety of leads to hopefully show you how to climb with this team. This team did help me reach veteran rank, and I'm going to continue using it, hopefully until the Remix Cup runs out. Goodra lead is pretty self-explanatory. Race to the close combat since you do outpace, and full send. If they shield, swap in Reggie. If they don't shield, try to snipe with Steelix, and I say that because at a later point in this video, we will see another battle where I swapped in Reggie after they no-shielded, and I got absolutely cooked. Typhlosion isn't as bad as you would think unless they, if they bait. Typically they will full send, but they are down 2 shields, and I figured down 2 shields, and myself up 2 shields, Gallade would have a pretty solid time, cooking whatever the backline may be. And we do manage to land the Zap Cannon onto the Typhlosion before going down. We did invest a shield, and now we have Registeelix lined up against Goodra, and you can actually tank 2 Aqua Tails depending on the stats of the Goodra, which is why I'm not going to shield here. Save shields for Shadow Gallade, even though it was the lead, but it's now in the Bach. Go for the crunch, don't be an absolute degenerate, which I am, and go for the Psychic Fangs debuff. That is one of the strats that I have used for Steelix. Although I am a degenerate, I am not too degenerate. I have some class to my name. If you see a flyer in the lead, which is typically Mantine or Gligar, you want to safe swap Steelix and go for the crunch on the first move. Don't go for the Psychic Fangs. Here we got incredibly lucky. My opponent is rocking Acid Spray. I went for the Close Combat because Close Combat does do slightly more damage and I was only going to get to 1 move. In hindsight, what I would have done was go for the Psychic Fangs and then swap out and go for the Leaf Blade. Poliwrath lead is pretty great for yourself. What you want to do is you want to wait that 1 turn so that they can't catch a Leaf Blade. That would be detrimental to you. They will go for an Icy Wind, but you can't tank this. You can't tank anything. You see these counters? These counters are karate chopping you down to your grave. I build up to the back-to-back and I pause again, and my opponent swaps into a Mandy, and because 1 Zap Cannon does not kill the Mandigbuzz, we do full send a Close Combat. Now you can swap into Reginald the Hocus Pocus. And I'm going to build up to the Zap Cannon, and I'm going to undercharge. I think I charged to a Great. And then I'm going to stop charging so that I can lock on this thing down. The reason being is I don't want Poliwrath to get such an enormous farm on my Reginald. And I can easily tank these moves from the Mandy better than I can tank these counters. Because they swap into Registeel, I'm going to go for the Zap Cannon debuff because at this point, I'm realizing that I can probably either swap out into Gallade or just save Gallade to close out this game. I'm not going to shield anything on Steelix. My opponent also seems like they are a degenerate since they're rocking the same fit. So I'm going to trust that my degeneracy is slightly less than theirs. And I can come in with Gallade as long as I can survive these lock-ons, which means build up to the back-to-back close combats before debuffing yourself. Get both of them off. You don't have to bait. It would be your lose con. And we managed to seal out this game. GG's to my opponent. Sick fit, my guy. Next up is going to be a Mawile lead, which I was so confused about. I was like, how the hell do I deal with this? So initially, I thought it would be Firefang. If you see there, I tried to type on... Yes, type. I tried to tap on Registeel after doing 1 Psycho Cut. But the game is no working right now. The game is a type of Shikaka. So it made me do 2 Psycho Cuts, which kind of puts me at a worse position. And they bring in Giratina, which isn't great, but it's also not awful. If I was planning on retaining swap, which I'm not, I would have shielded up that first Shadow Ball. Here I'm kind of thinking that they might bait, which they don't, which great on them. But I'm gonna farm in with Steelix, farm this thing all the way down to Shittipa Town. My opponent doesn't make a move. This is a different game. And because they bring in Poliwrath, I'm going to debuff them. And the mistake that I make here is swapping out. I could have gone for the Leaf Blade, they would not have caught. But here I'm gonna bait, and I get a little too greedy and decide to bait the second time around. At this point, I think that I can still, one, survive the counters because it's not a Shadow Poliwrath. And my opponent absolutely calls this move, which great on them. This is their win con. And I lose this, and then I go for the close combat. And because now I am now twice debuffed, I believe is what close combat does, I don't want to shield this. I'm going to come in with Reggie, even though my moves are hella resisted, and just over farm to the max so that they can't safely come back in with Poliwrath. At least that was my plan going into this. But then I assumed that they were going to snipe, which is why I throw this immediately on poor timing. And at this point, the game is done. The game is over once I no-shield the first Shadow Ball from Giratina. I paused my game there by accident. I was like, what the hell happened? And then I have to shield this, and they're most likely going to come back in with Poly. And I am way too low to make anything happen, so I concede. I top left. Superior was a tricky lead. I have two responses in the back, so I safe swap Sir Reginald the Hocus Pocus, and I met with Gligar, which is type trash. However, we are ahead on energy, and we do outpace to their first dig. And because they shield, and I get the debuff, I'm gonna shield again because I know I can outpace, or I think I can outpace to the second dig. I don't. But the reason being is I don't want them to bait on the second one. And because we already did get the debuff and they traded a shield, I feel like that's a safe shield. I'm going to go again for the Zap Cannon. As you can see, we are weak to flyers, specifically Gligar. We're like all around weak to Gligar. However, Steelix puts in the best work against Gligar. And Mantine is doable, as one tradey would say, for both Gallade and Steelix, up energy. Here they don't reach, they actually would have reached the dig. But my opponent thought they would die with the move, I guess, and they settle for the Aerial Ace. Again, go for the crunch. Every Steelix user debuffs with Psychic Fangs, which is trash. And once they're back in with the Superior, I'm gonna let this move go and come in with Gallade. I guess I do go for a debuff just to see what they would do, since I didn't get the 1 turn or the 0 turn swap. And because they shield, which I think is a poor shield on their part, I'm going to shield here and then CMP on the Leaf Blade. If they catch, it is what it is, but I'll have energy, and they're not swapping out, which leads me to believe that maybe they are type scared of Gallade in the back. We get off the Leaf Blade, which is why I went for the Psychic Fangs that time, and it is a Carbink. And here I'm just keeping track of their Rock Throws because a Rock Slide would KO me from this health, believe it or not. Believe it! And we're at the back-to-back. They are at the Rock Slide now. I don't think they're going to throw it. And we can get both moves off, which is absolutely great. So Carbink isn't the most difficult to lead. I think they should have brought in Steelix, because Steelix doesn't do well against Carbink, even though everything is resisted. 1, you're a Shadow, you take slightly more damage, and 2, the only thing you can hit it with is Psychic Fang. Registeel, build up 8 Psycho Cuts, which is when they reach their Zap Cannon. 1 close combat does not KO, but Lock On doesn't do any damage. As you can see, I tried to swap there just to catch, but my opponent had different idea. They wanted to swap, or they wanted to CMP. But you want to throw that close combat before they debuff you, because as you can see, it doesn't one-hit KO. I think maybe they have a good Reggie. I'm not sure if it's for all Registeel. But here they bring in Felipe, and I'm gonna go for the Psychic Fangs here because this thing is so glassy. They do swap out with a move, which is great, and I'm gonna force them to CMP with me, which we do lose. But I'm gonna bring back in Gallade because at this point I can save the back Mons for Registeel, and we're gonna have a good time. So here I'm kind of hoping that they do shield, even though one Leaf Blade doesn't KO from full health. But I think with that amount of chip from the Dragon Tails, we should be in a good spot. And now I need to bring in Reggie. I know their switch timer isn't up yet. I feel like they won't bait me on the first move, which is why I shield the Shadow Ball. And I just need to make sure that they don't catch. Throw two lock-ons, and then throw your move, which is proper timing for a 1-turn into a 3-turn charge move. They do shield, and now their timer is up. I need to watch for a catch. I need to overfarm. One Shadow Ball does not KO, followed by one Surf, so they do need to go for the Shadow Ball again. And they try to make the catch. They have the Weather Ball loaded. At this point, I can farm them down, and I believe my opponent is going to realize that, and they will top left once Felipe goes down before he can sweep me. Up against Cell Phone Case. What a cool name. So Mantine, how do you deal with the Flyers? Well, I don't think I bring in Reggie. Yeah, I bring in Steelix, which isn't a hard response to Mantine. Registeel is your hard response. And I'm going to keep overfarming because sometimes players will tend to throw on poor timing, so you get a free Dragon Tail through. They didn't here. You saw that I did pause a turn just to make sure that they wouldn't catch this crunch on something. And again, I didn't go for the Psychic Fangs, and I am all the better for it. At this point, I've gotten the Mantine incredibly low. I can deal with this thing in the back. They do go for the Water Pulse, which actually hurts. And then they come in with Deoxys. Deoxys is a pretty solid response to both my back mons, but the charge attacks do very, very, very little. Here, they let me get to the Leaf Blade, so I throw it immediately. And I think at this point, I might just sack Gallade. And I do. There has been a Deoxys before that did bait me, which is why I didn't want to shield the Psycho Boost. And I think I need to shield this one. I should have shielded the first one. If I was going to end up shielding regardless, I should have shielded this one. Because I can't do anything against Deoxys with Registeel. Like, I can't lock it down. I would have to throw a move, and I don't want to do that. They have Gligar in the back, and so this is absolutely GG's. My opponent saw that I was trying to bait out the Gligar maybe, and chose not to send it in. And that was a fantastically played game on my opponent's part. Here, what I tend to do, I just overfarm to the max. Don't throw right away. Nothing KOs. You actually need 3 moves to KO a Deoxys. But this is where you want to see it. They allow me to CMP, which they lose. And we're able to get this Leaf Blade off. And because they don't shield, I think I'm going to shield. They're at the back-to-back, and I'm going to attempt a catch on a backmon. So no, they're not at the back-to-back. We build up to their Psycho Boost, and then we catch. So this was the Deoxys that I guess baited me, but a Thunderbolt would still do considerable damage. They bring in Poliwrath, so far double counter users, and they have Pup. I'm like, what the hell is this move that they got to so fast? But I guess, they're also a degenerate like myself and are rocking a Shadow counter user with Pup to boost up that counter damage. They don't shield this, which is great. That's absolutely pivotal for me because I have the Leaf Blade. I'm going to attempt to CMP on their next Pup because I don't look at those counters, man. Those counters are absolutely eating away at my Gallade. What is this typing? This is the Medicham typing, and somehow we are still type shit against the Poliwrath, which is insane. I just watched some of Home Slice's recent video with Mewtwo, the Psychic type, the so-called Psychic type, and how Poliwrath can also counter it down in the 2 shields. So, these absolutely trash mons. I figured they would go 1 for the catch, and I thought I threw on right timing, but clearly I didn't. I am a bozo. And then 2, I figured they would go for the harder hitting move right off rip, and I figured I might as well shield that. And especially after getting that debuff, you're going to see that 2 shield up Ninetales plus a catch to their name was not enough to take down Sir Reginald the Bulbous, who does the hocus pocus. And they have to commit to a farm down to take me down, and that's not going to happen. And I believe 1 lock-on should be enough. I could flex and pause the turn, but let's not play silly games. Play silly games, win silly prizes. Okay, Goodra lead. This is the one where I realized that if they don't shield, you should swap in Steelix. So, a close combat does not KO a Goodra, but it does a considerable amount of damage. And then I bring in Registeel, and they throw the move, which is fine, right? They probably would have made it on the Steelix, but if they panicked, maybe they would have lost the move. And here, I need to bait. They're 100% going to shield. They have Cross Chop. What a madman. And I probably should have thrown that sooner, but I wasn't sure where the timing was, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't allow a free counter. And because I don't get the debuff, I auto lose. They can farm me down. I may have made another Focus Blast at least to force the second shield, but they're up way too much energy. They're gonna get my shield back. Their timer is most likely up. I need to shield this. Like, there is no world where I flip this. I'm at the Leaf Blade now. I'm gonna build up to the close combat and pause a turn to try to throw off the Leaf Blade. I do pause a turn, and we full send the Leaf Blade. They have both shields, and I don't think I'm going to be able to outpace. Yeah, they're at it right now. And even though they do go for the Night Slash, this is GG's. This is where Steelix really struggles against those dark types like Mandibuzz, and in this case, Obstagoon. But if you safe swap Steelix and catch the Aqua Tail, you'll be able to debuff it to a point where a Leaf Blade will KO, and your Dragon Tails will do considerable amount of damage to make this thing a little less oppressive. I pause a turn just because I want to see what their backmon is to see if I had any play. I believe it ends up being a flyer. It does. It's a Mantine. So maybe I would have had a shot if they still bring in Obstagoon against my Steelix as opposed to the Mantine. I swap out of all Ninetales leads just because I don't want to risk that they're running Charm or Powder Snow. And that Charm does chunk. It does like about a fifth of your health. Here, I have a shield. I think I'm going to let this go. If they are a scrub, they bait. And they master bait. Which means that I can get to another move. Focus Blast will force the second shield or take out the Typhlosion, a mon which I love. But now, they're at the back-to-back. I believe they're at 2 Thunder Punches. I'm going to invest both shields. I'm going to pause, wait the turns so that they can't catch. And if they bring in the Ninetales, I'm going to swap Steelix because I need the energy on Gallade. The close combat does nothing to me if my Steel Snake gets cooked. So I store up the close combat and I bring in Steelix to sacrifice it to the Poke Gods and trust in Gallade to close me out this match. They go for Psyshock, which is a thing that you can do. I'm not entirely sure why. Weather Ball is neutral and does do more damage, as we can both now see. Both of us being you and me. How's it going? How's life? Okay, so I CMP on this move because I thought that they might throw on better timing. They don't. I need to overfarm as much as I can. I had lost track of energy, so I figured I could do 4 and then throw the move, which I can. If they had caught on their Typhlosion, that would have been GG's. I do go for 2 in the move. The damage registers on the 4th move, but either they got 1 turn bring in, or it didn't register because that close combat KO'd. I built up to 4 because I wasn't sure how much a Leaf Blade would do. I know it's 2 times effective, but I wasn't 100% positive that would KO. In hindsight, I am a scrub and I am coping. Empoleon. This is the most difficult lead for this team. I have yet to know how to beat an Empoleon, but I think that the way to do it is to stay in and just sack your Gallade. Sack your Gallade and trust that even though they may have a flyer such as Mantine or Gligar in the back, that your Steelix should be able to put in work. If you sack Gallade, you force them to throw, because they can farm you down in 2 shields, so I'd assume that they would want to at least force both a shield from you before swapping out. You could have Steelix onto your Gligar, and Steelix onto Gligar is a much safer bet because you can either Psychic Fangs debuff them, or you can full send the crunch on the first move, which I like to do in order to force them to take more damage, because typically they won't shield that first move. Most Gligar do not bait. I throw again on proper timing. I wait the turn to just make sure that they don't catch. And then I think they bring in Empoleon. And they have Mandy in the back, and my opponent plays this to absolute perfection. I go for the Leaf Blade. I don't know if I'm going to survive one more Bullet Punch. What is it? Steel Wing. I don't know if I'm going to survive another Steel Wing, but I do make it to the close combat. But Dragonite, Dragonite, damn. I miss my dragon. Steelix doesn't have any closing potential against Mandibuzz. You do win CMP, which is great, but all they need to do is land 2 Dark Pulses, and I'm going to make sure that I shield the first one. I was afraid that they would bait me on the first one, but they don't, luckily for me. And here I am overfarming, trying to CMP with them because I do need another crunch to KO. But as you're going to see, they're already at the back-to-back Dark Pulses. So I am delaying the inevitable, forcing you to watch out this matchup because I don't want to fast forward through this video because I don't know how. And a Dark Pulse does unfortunately KO. I don't know if I had a better Steelix, if I would have survived that. But maybe, you know, Copium. And here you see me pause because I'm like, how the hell did I lose that game? And here I'm trying to figure out how it is that you play out of an Empoleon lead. And the only thing that I can come up with, because if you safe swap Registeel off rip, you're met with that Gligar. If you stay in with Gallade and you chip and dip, you see what happens. But I think that if you stay in with Gallade and you full sack the Gallade, I think you have a better shot. Because Empoleon will be slightly drier in energy. And if they safe swap Gligar, you have the Steelix to meet them with, and you can close out, hopefully, with Registeel. So I think that's how I'll play it going forward. Emolga, I accidentally swap. I don't know how it's an accident. I think in hindsight I realized. I accidentally swap into my hard counter. I should have brought in Reggie. But they don't exactly have a incredible response to Steelix. And I'm noticing how much these Dragon Tails are doing. And I'm like, okay, I'm about to go down 2 shields, but I think I can. They allow a full Dragon Tail through, which I think cements the fact that I'm going for the farm down. And then I'm like, okay, what do they have in the back? What they have in the back is a Ferrothorn. And I think at this point, I'm like a little scared because they're still up 2 shields. I go for the crunch before they get to the Power Whip. I believe they have 3 already, 3 Bullet Seeds worth of energy, and I'm going to try to make a catch. We are successful with the catch. Thank God. And I think they're going to bring back in the Emolga. I try to throw on proper timing here, which I thought was proper timing, but I think the game glitched ever so slightly. I don't think I'm coping. So they get a full Bullet Seed through, but they still end up shielding, which it's a safe bet to go for the Zap Cannon because they have all of that energy, and they're thinking what I'm thinking, which is that they're going to save Ferrothorn to close out the match. Oh, that sounded disgusting. Let's do that again. Ferrothorn to close out the match. They come in with Emolga. The discharge does not KO. I snipe with Registeel. Yes, Registeelix, and I go for the Psychic Fangs. I don't know if they got 1 turn bring-in, which means they lost a turn on the bring-in. But I do think Ferrothorn wins CMP or Cap against Steelix. I'm not gonna make it, or I do make it to a Psychic Fang. So great that I do. This forces their final shield, and I just need to cope. That Gallade is bulky enough to survive a whip. We have 2 Psycho Cuts through. We just need 1 more Psycho Cut to KO. They're at the back-to-back. My timer is up. You know what's gonna happen. We catch the Power Whip. They are energy dry, and I think we clutch out this game that I probably should have lost. I played that like shit. My opponent played that really well. Yeah. Jellicent. Every Jelly lead that I've played out a little bit differently. This is the one that I like the most. Going for 1, the overfarm, and 2, for proper timing. They do shield this. They again do 1 and throw the move, which is proper timing for them. And because I suspected that they're already down 2 shields, they might want to throw their energy. No, my opponent refuses to throw an alignment. Kudos on them. But at this point, I figured they wouldn't bait a Registeel, Sir Reginald the Bulbous, with a Hocus Pocus. And so I'm going to shield the first one to safely shield up a Shadow Ball as opposed to a Surf. And then I'm going to go for the Zap Cannon. I don't know why. I guess because they were down 2 shields that they didn't bring in the Gligar. And 2 Zap Cannons just about KO. But at this point, I'm going to let Reginald go. I am going to trust in Steelix to close, as we have seen, because he's an insane closer. Copium. And I'm just going to shield and farm this thing down. They are at a move, but a dig will do so much more than a Surf. And we are just going to get the nice farm down onto the Gligar. As you can see, Gligar into Steelix, not a terrible matchup. They have Poliwrath, and here I know I outpaced to a Leaf Blade, which is why I'm going to do what I do. Does this come back to hunt? I wait the turn, and I throw the Leaf Blade, and this will KO. And I think the Jelly has some amount of energy. Either they got one turn bring in, or they got damage registration error. Which means the new mechanic, right? They got new mechanic, which is when your fast move or your charge move takes priority over the opponent's fast move. Which is how the game is supposed to work, but it's comme ci comme ça. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. And I think we won that game because we got DRE. Or new mechanic, whichever one it is. They attempt to catch a close combat onto the Registeel, but I saw it coming. I always keep an eye on the top left just to make sure, or the top right, sorry, just to see what they're bringing in. And I wanted to force a shield, which is why I dumped all my energy. All I need to do is maintain alignment. I know that my Steel Snake is going to get absolutely one-shot by Sir Reginald, but we cannot allow this Gligar to be, or we cannot allow for poor alignment. We have Gallade. I'm hell-bent on investing shields into it. I need to debuff it, and I think they could have overfarmed or undercharged this. If they undercharged this, it would have been hell for me. And because I stayed a while in the lead with Gallade, I wait out my timer. So here, I assume they're going to go, oh, maybe they thought I was going to overfarm, which is why I went for the close combat immediately. And they have Jelly in the back, and my opponent is doing something that I do, which is planning out the next steps in my head, a la chess, and realizing that, yeah, I lost. So they concede in the end. I'm not at all insulting my opponent. I'm just like when you know you've lost, you concede, you know, or you can, you know, close out your game, force quit it like a baloney. I believe in this team. I stand by Gallade. And if you want to try this team, please let me know how it goes. And I'm going to continue climbing, hopefully, with this team. And I'll catch you in that next video. Peace! Subscribe, because I do have a really, really solid video coming up that I can't wait to show to you guys.